Hello, this is my case study of a second language learner. Let's learn about my case study's background. My case study participant is Javier. Javier was born in El Salvador. El Salvador is the smallest country in Central America. A very interesting fact about this country is that they gave up their national coin and adopted the United States dollar. Food, groceries, cars, houses, salaries, everything is paid in US dollars. This country has all the main American fast food restaurants, and the malls have mostly American names, and people want to purchase American brands. Even when people listen to music, they love to listen to music in English. Let's learn about Javier's second language acquisition. Javier's parents always encourage him to study hard and especially to learn different languages. He began studying English when he was in 9th grade. This is when most of the public schools in El Salvador require students to learn English. For most Salvadorians, English is an extremely important language. Due to economic reasons, most parents want to make sure their children learn English. People who speak this language will be able to get a better paid job. In addition, parents dream about sending their children to the United States. Therefore, students learn English in school and in language academies. As I learned from our interview, Javier attended one of these specialized English language schools in El Salvador. He described how his teacher played an important role in his language acquisition. He remembers his classes gave him frequent opportunities to interact with his classmates. The years passed and Javier graduated from high school. He studied architecture and got married. In the year 2012, Javier and his family immigrated to the United States. This marked a new beginning for Javier and his family. And he was to undergo a great challenge. He felt that he had to prove he could speak English well now that he was going to live in the United States. In our interview, Javier told me he had started working at an auto body shop and described how on occasions he felt somewhat shy to speak to his co-workers. His work did not allow much interaction among co-workers. Every employee worked on a car independently according to what needed to be done to that car. So, due to that reason, employees talked only during lunch. Javier mentioned that sometimes he felt confident and tried to engage in short conversations with his co-workers. As our interview continued, I explained to Javier that I was going to administer 4 different tests to evaluate his English proficiency. The first test was a listening assessment, and Javier listened to his online training session. Javier understood the content of the training session. He didn't have to listen to the material twice, and he answered all the questions correctly. He understood the main points and important details, and even implicit information at a level nearly comparable to that of a native speaker, so I rated him as Advanced High. The second test was a speaking assessment, and Javier told me about a favorite childhood family trip. I used the solemn instrument for this test. Javier received a 5 in comprehension, a 4 in fluency, 4 in vocabulary, 4 in pronunciation, 4 in grammar. So according to the solemn instrument, Javier is proficient. The third test was a reading assessment, and Javier read his favorite car magazine, Motor Trend. Javier read with appropriate rate, speed, and expression. He read and understood vocabulary at a level nearly comparable to that of a native speaker. He was able to apply basic and higher order comprehension skills while reading the article. I used TELPAS and rated Javier as Advanced High. The fourth test was a writing assessment, and Javier wrote about his favorite sport. So he wrote 2 paragraphs about tennis and his favorite player, Roger Federer. In this test, Javier used vocabulary and language structures nearly comparable to the writing of a native speaker. The big question is, how did Javier's first language literacy skills influence his second language acquisition? In order to answer this question correctly, we are going to learn about transfer.
So let's talk about moving. It's a real challenge to get all your stuff from one place to another. The thing is, even if you decide to leave lots of junk behind, one thing you're always stuck with is your old language. It might clutter up the brain space you want for your fresh new language, but there's nothing you can do about it. Some things you can't leave behind. I'm Moti Lieberman, and this is the Link Space.
Welcome to the Link Space.
So the biggest difference between learning your first language and any other one is also the most obvious. When you're learning a second or third language, you already have a whole linguistic system inside your head. And as much as we'd like to forget everything we know about our native language when we learn a new one, we just can't. Once your system's been wired with the grammar of your first language, that knowledge is very sticky. It's like caramel, except inside your brain. But people still learn new languages, right? It's not like there's a sign that says, if you're over 2 years old, you can't ride the new language roller coaster. The difference, though, is this. If you already have a grammar in your head and you start learning a new one, your first guess about whatever your new language will do is based on however your old language did it. In other words, you transfer knowledge over from your first language, or L1, into your second language, or L2. As you get more information about your L2, you'll revise all those ideas and make a new grammar, but transfer happens first. So how do we know there has to be transfer? Well, if everyone started from scratch in their L2, they would all follow the same path, right? All people would pick up their new language in the same way, no matter where they were coming from. Use the same language recipe, get the same language cake. But that's not even close to what happens. We see different patterns in what mistakes people make depending on what their first language was. And we know they can't be getting it from speakers of whatever it is they're learning, because native speakers would never say those things.
The next big question is, what factors affected Javier's second language acquisition?
The internal factors are those that the individual language learner brings with him to the particular learning situation. Some of these factors are age, aptitude, personality, motivation, experiences, cognition, and native language. Age. Second language acquisition is influenced by the age of the learner. Are your students young children, adolescents, or adults? How will they prefer to learn? By games, by songs, or by repetition? Aptitude. Is there a wide difference among your students? What natural talent or special abilities do they have for doing and learning new things? Will your students profit from grouping individual or instruction classes? Personality. What type of students do you have in your classroom? What personality variables could affect your teaching? Is their self-esteem high or low? Are they extroverted or introverted? Are they risk-taking or are they anxious?
According to the results of the 4 assessments, Javier is rated as an advanced high second language learner and a proficient speaker. We concluded the interview, and Javier was more than happy that his assessments had demonstrated his English had improved significantly since he came to Texas 6 years ago. Javier expressed that these results will boost his self-confidence and he will try to speak more English with his co-workers. He also expressed that he feels he needs to read more in English. Furthermore, he mentioned that he had fun writing about his favorite sport. He told me his father had always kept a journal about their family trips and that he was going to start a journal to keep his own family memories. Thank you for paying attention.